and the university, because we deal more with early stage, really, really early stage. We deal with a lot of ideas that are coming out of research. So there is a lot of risk happening here because many of these startups might not continue. So we tend to take them a bit earlier because, again, the main purpose of any university is to equip people with skills and get them ready for the market. And also, like, part of it is to increase the number of spin-outs and the number of startups coming out of there. So in order to do this, we're going a bit earlier because we're having them, especially like for talking on a student level, they are studying. This is their full-time job and they're trying to build something beside this. So we are happy to help them. We're happy to accommodate to their to their schedule somehow, design the programs in a way that fits within their life. On the other side, it's a bit more aggressive outside, which again, it's pros and cons.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Features with Hello Advisor. This is a special content series where we gather founders and individuals that work in the startup world to share their stories and to hear from their experiences. Now, today we have joining us Ahmed Saad from the Oxford Saïd Business School. Hi, Ahmed. How are you doing?
Hi, Alexis. Thank you for having me. All
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. Ahmed is the program manager at the Entrepreneurship Center at the Saïd School of Business in Oxford. And he specializes in helping early stage founders, researchers, and deep tech startups sort of turn their ideas into investment ready ventures. So yeah, to start us off, I know I gave that quick introduction, but Ahmed, would you introduce yourself to our audience and walk us through your professional journey?
Cool. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, as you mentioned, like I work currently as a program manager for the Oxford Saïd Entrepreneurship Center. So the center is basically having a portfolio of programs that we offer for entrepreneurs in the university, all the way from just an interest in entrepreneurship, having an idea or something, all the way to the investment stage. So we're trying to kind of serve all different stages of these entrepreneurs with our portfolio of programs. I'll be mentioning some of them
Mhm.
through our conversation. My journey in this, it started actually like quite early. I was 18 when I first heard about what is entrepreneurship and so on. It
Mhm.
was like, cool, this entrepreneurship thing seems nice. I was doing engineering, so had nothing to do with that. I was like, okay, if these are the amazing people that we hear about, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and so on, well, I want to just be one of them. So I
Mhm.
decided, okay, I would go and start a business. And I'm originally from Egypt, so I saw a problem in the market, or at least that's what I assumed it was a problem. Um, we have really good uh, high quality cotton, and we have a really big history full of art and designs. So I was like,
Mhm.
hey, I want to make t-shirts from Egyptian cotton with Egyptian designs because the market is full of like Chinese and Turkish products, and we want to make our own. So it
Mhm.
was as simple as this. I talked to a couple of friends, and then we started that, and I failed miserably. Like I did all the mistakes that you can imagine and you cannot imagine. I just did them all. And I ended up with a big chunk of t-shirts in my closet that are haunting me till today. But also I ended up loving this thing of starting a business.
Mhm.
So throughout my career, I worked with a lot of startups. I worked for a co-working space where I can see a lot of startups. I started another business later, more of in the food and entertainment industry. And then I worked for an entrepreneurship center for the Ministry of Investment. That's all back in Egypt.
Mhm.
And that position back there is where I started like working deeply with a lot of startups at the same time. So I was more on the business advising side of things. So we have entrepreneurs walk in, I'm trying to start turning my car into an Uber. So how would I do that? Is this a good business, or you have a software company that's a scale up and they're trying to navigate their next round of investment? So I dealt with a lot of different stages, a lot of different needs of startups, and tried to connect them with different accelerators, investors, and so on. So it was a really vital step in my journey, where I started to learn what is a startup ecosystem looks like and what does it
Mhm.
need. And then I moved to the UK. I did my master's in innovation entrepreneurship. So I kind of added this academic layer to my experience. I started working for universities till I ended up working here in Oxford.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, I love how your like gradual exposure to the startup world kind of introduced you to so many different perspectives. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit when we get to your work with Oxford University. Um, but yeah, if you ever want to get rid of those t-shirts, you can always send one over to Dallas, Texas. Egyptian
Sure,
cotton is really
sure.
great.
I'll be happy to. Like, yeah, it happened actually before. Like I said, a friend was like, let me try to help you sell some. And so I sent big chunk of them. And she was like, man, I can sell this. They're really bad. So I was like, keep them. Just like burn them, anything with them. Yeah.
That is too funny. And yeah, honestly, like kudos for being able to, move on from that experience. All those mistakes that you said you made. Yeah, it's probably kind of cringe to like look back at it, but um, obviously you've built like a whole career even just from that humble starting point. So, yeah, let's talk about more about where you are today with the Oxford Saïd Business School. And you kind of touch on it. You guys have a startup incubator, but you also run a lot of other startup programs and development programs. So yeah, why don't you share with us what you guys do and the breadth of work that you do?
Sure. So my main focus is a program called Oxford Venture Builder. So
Mm,
this is a program I kind of started when I joined the school here, and this program focuses on the idea stage entrepreneurs. So the program is 7 weeks. We take entrepreneurs from all over the university. So Oxford is really huge. We are sector agnostic, so we take any kind of sector, any kind of industry, as long as you're in this idea stage, and we're trying to put them on a journey where they can validate this business. What's quite different about this program is we are not looking for them just to, or trying to push them just to start their business and go and register your company and do this. So a positive outcome for us is if you decide not to continue, or if you decided to pivot and change what you're trying to build, or if you
mm,
decided to continue. So these are three different outcomes, but we're happy with any of the three. What we're trying to do is to equip you with the tools and knowledge and experience to be able to assess and validate this business idea. So we
mhm,
take them through these 7 weeks. We start with 3 days intensive boot camp, and then we go through 5 to 6 weeks of one-to-one mentorship, weekly sessions, follow-ups, and like different review points throughout the program. And by the end of it, we have a pitching event where they can showcase their ideas and get extra feedback. We also like offer like a small grant where they can just help them build their MVP or prototypes.
mhm. Gotcha. And then there are a couple other platforms that you guys have for startups. I know you have a forum, as well with the business school. Yeah.
Yes. So beside Oxford Venture Builder, we do have like a big portfolio of programs. We have, as you mentioned, Oxford Saïd Entrepreneurship Forum. So this is kind of like an event we do once a year, where we
Mhm,
bring in some keynote speakers, like seasoned entrepreneurs who can share their stories on kind of like a TED Talk style keynotes. And then we have like 5, 6 different panel discussions, usually on the hot topics that are happening throughout the year. And we have like a pitching event. So it's kind of like a celebration of entrepreneurship happening. It's the biggest event I would say like that happens in Oxford that celebrates entrepreneurship. You would get to meet a lot of people that are working on their own startups, a lot of investors. So it's very inspirational and very good for connections and networking. Beside that, we also have Oxford Seed Fund. So this is a student-led seed fund where we invest in startups coming out of Oxford, like from Oxford students or alumni. So that's another tool that we help like the entrepreneurs in Oxford through. We have other programs that are more like curriculum programs. So that's more of inside the business school, like for our MBA students or even for other students from across the university. We offer a lot of training and ad hoc events with the main focus on equipping those students and researchers with the tools that they need to be able to commercialize their research.
Mhm. Wow, that is a lot of resources and sounds very enriching. But I was curious to get your take on this. So Oxford offers all of these programs and platforms for their startups, or for ventures working with the university. So what do you believe makes a university-based startup program unique versus your standard accelerator incubator?
That's a great question. So
Mhm.
first, like I think if we're comparing programs that are happening inside universities with programs that are outside, I think the big differentiator is usually in universities we are taking slightly more risk and earlier stage compared with the accelerator programs or incubator programs that are a bit more commercial, because
Mhm.
most of these programs, I'm talking especially here like on the accelerator level, they are focused on reporting in their ROI. So basically, as investors, they put their money, they are expecting uh, like a return on their investment.
Mhm.
So these programs will tend to be very, very selective, and they are trying to take startups that are, I would say, a bit less riskier than what we take in university. And the university, because we deal more with early stage, really, really early stage, we deal with a lot of ideas that are coming out of research. So there is a lot of risk happening here because many of these startups might not continue. So we tend to take them a bit earlier because, again, the main purpose of any university is to equip people with skills and get them ready for the market. And also, like part of it is to increase the number of spinouts and the number of startups coming out of there. So in order to do this, we're going a bit earlier because we're having them, especially like for talking on a student level, they are studying.
Mhm.
This is their full-time job, and they're trying to build something beside this. So we are happy to help them. We're happy to accommodate to their schedule somehow, design the programs in a way that fits within their life. On
Mhm.
the other side, it's a bit more aggressive outside, which again, it's pros and cons. Sometimes we feel like it's very, very safe environment to the extent that are we spoon feeding? Are we overprotecting these startups from the market? So like these are questions that you need to balance.
Mhm.
But on another level, I think it differs from university to another. So it really depends on how big is the ecosystem of this university. I work in a couple of universities and I can see there's a lot of difference. So here in Oxford, Oxford's huge, is very big and very old and we do have lots and lots of talents. So the name and the reputation and the level of research brings a lot of talents here. So we do have a really big pool of entrepreneurs to tap into. So it's not a struggle for us to find startups for our programs. Actually, we even like in a program like the one that I manage, it's an idea stage program. I shouldn't be actually super selective, but I have to because I do get a
Mhm.
lot of applications.
Mhm.
However, on some other universities, they have the opposite. They might have like 20 seats on their programs, but they don't get enough applications to fill these seats. So again, I think the university itself makes a lot of difference. So given that it's Oxford, we have the highest number of spin-outs in the whole of Europe. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that came out of here. We have a lot of ties with the industry. There is a lot of companies around us. There is a lot of investors around here. So it's much easier to start here. And it's much easier for us even to find entrepreneurs and try to help them. Again, like talent is really high. So some of them are already entrepreneurs, but by nature kind of. So they are ready to start their businesses. So we just nudge them towards the right direction.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Not surprised to hear that sort of the university mission overlaps with the mission of your venture builder. But that does, like you mentioned, bring up several like very unique considerations because you're operating within the university context. So I want to focus on two things you kind of mentioned in your answer there. And the first one is those that build within the Oxford ecosystem are building sort of at the intersection of academia and innovation. Like you mentioned, a lot of your startups come from research. These are researchers trying to turn their ideas into valid business ideas. So what is sort of that relationship between innovation and industry? And in what ways have you seen that connection sort of fuel new ideas? And how does OVB sort of play a part in that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question, and that's actually a great area because there is a lot of conversations always going around. Like, so a very personal point of view is I see that the research value is in its application, and its application in terms of like how can I commercialize that? How can I make sure that this goes to the market and makes difference in people's life? It's not just sitting there on a shelf written and somebody got, I don't know, whatever certificate because they wrote something. So I think as much as you're connected to the industry, that commercialization opportunity will open up. And that's why there is a lot of, like from those who I'm working with, the best startups that I saw that are turning something, they're turning their research into startups or spinning out something out of the university are those who were connected to the industry from an early point. So they actually built the research around a problem out there in the market. So this research already, when it's done, it's meant to solve a problem. It's meant to be sold to those who are really looking for a solution. So I think it's really important to build this tie from the start. And it's important for researchers to have this understanding and this mindset of commercialization. And this is one of the things that we're trying to build. So we're trying kind of like right now to build more programs into training doctoral researchers. So you're an amazing doctoral student, but also one of the things that will make you super like effective is to have this commercialization skills, this kind of business skills when you start your program. So at the start, you have this business acumen, you have this business understanding, you have this entrepreneurial mindset. So when you're working on your research, you're actually working towards solving a problem that will make the opportunities of this research to be a spin out or turning into a company later higher. So again, for example, through OVB, a lot of our participants are doing their masters and doing their doctoral research, and even some of them are staff members like professors. Many of them are trying to either spin out their research or doing something or build something that's related to their knowledge area. And what we're trying to do is to equip them with this understanding of how would you think about the market. So it's a quite a common case, especially when it comes from researchers who are like they've spent a lot of time researching what they're doing. They're really good at it, but they would come with something in mind. Okay, this is exactly what I think the product that the market needs, and then after they spend some time working on their business model, they realize, I think the market doesn't need exactly what I built, but it might need a little bit of tweaking and pivoting to make what I built like fitting with this market. So again, here is the mindset we're trying to build really. Like, how would you be flexible around the technology that you're developing and make sure that this technology is really solving a problem, and it's not just like you have a solution and you're trying to make it fit somewhere. So you like start from the problem, understand the customer. All of these things, it's easy to be said, but it's another thing to make people practice it. So you would find a lot of them like coming with assumptions around their market, around their customer, but then you tell them, have you ever talked to this customer? They say no, like, but they obviously need this. But when they start talking to them, they start to build different realizations. It's not necessarily like what they were thinking was entirely wrong or entirely right. It's usually in this gray area. So there are some aspects that are right of what I was doing, some aspects are wrong. So there is a chance to modify, adjust things to make it right.
Gotcha. Yeah. It all makes sense. Like great technology with no application or no need from the market, it won't make it, especially if people can't see like why they need it. So yeah, it's great that you're like Oxford is able to sort of connect and bridge those two sectors, especially acknowledging sort of, the pitfalls in both. So you mentioned sort of one challenge that student entrepreneurs often face when they're trying to build their venture. Are there any other challenges that are unique to student entrepreneurs or researchers from your experience?
I think, yeah, there is a number of challenges, or like I would say patterns that we kind of encounter. So one of them is this understanding of these business skills and so on. But also another one is coming with assumption that I have everything sorted, I just need the money. So this is usually something that we need to deal with. So I would meet a lot of people like, man, like everything is ready, just give me an investor. But then when they start to know that, okay, investors are not really easy to sign on just an idea or just a concept. You need to do a lot of other things. There is a lot of things that you can do before you reach to the point, okay, I'm opening now a round of investment. So again, showing them or like putting some light on the areas that they need to work on, like, is your business model, like, is this the right business model to go after? Is your product is actually the problem that you're trying to solve well defined and validated? Have you talked to the customer? Have you understood what is out there in the market? What are the competition or the competitors out there? And this is another thing, like you would find some people coming like, there is no competition for this. Like usually there is. If there is a need, there is somebody who is helping people to solve this need. Your role as an entrepreneur is to understand how my customer is dealing with this need. As long as it's a need, it's a problem. I'm not waiting for your solution. I'm doing something about it. So you're trying to understand what are they doing about this problem? How are they dealing with it today? And where's the gap? That how can you make this better, faster, quicker, higher quality or whatever? So, but understanding the competition is one of the things. So this understanding of the market, like a lot of people comes in, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they should look for before they go for an investor. So again, another part is building a prototype, building an MVP, trying things out, understanding like the lean approach of like, okay, how can we iterate and take a couple of iterations before we go to the investor? Because this investor needs to see, what have you done? How did you interact with the customer? Do you have any paying customer, any customer that's like, okay, take my money and give me this or not? Because this is what gives the investor kind of this relief. Okay, like there is somebody is willing to pay for this solution, so I might then invest. So
Mhm.
getting all of these entrepreneurs to understand that is a really kind of like is the thing that we're trying to do.
Gotcha. And so what advice would you have for entrepreneurs trying to overcome that lack of knowledge, that lack of preparation? I know work within OVB is probably helping them do that, but what are some steps that you guys take to sort of bridge that gap?
I think the first and the most important step is actually get out there and talk about your idea.
Mm,
Um, you don't know who from your even a smaller network or your lab or school or class or whatever, you don't know who from these people could get you an introduction to somebody,
mhm,
could give you some good feedback. And also, like when it comes, especially like in the context that we're talking about, which is universities and something like Oxford, there is plenty of things happening. There is always some event, some networking event happening, some lecture, talk, something's happening everywhere. So
mhm,
go and just get yourself more exposed to more entrepreneurs, more investors, talk more about this idea, socialize it more. You will just start gathering more information, then
mhm,
you will act on this. As long as you keep your idea to yourself, it's not going to evolve. It's not
mhm,
challenged. It's not discussed. You will not understand that there is these kind of problems unless
mhm,
somebody tells you, but I think you should look at this. I'm not saying take every advice into consideration. It's more of like, well, hear as much as you can, and then you decide what to take and what to consider, what to
mhm,
act on, and what to not to.
mhm. Yeah, totally. So So let's say I'm a founder and like I do all that research and I'm going out and speaking to people and all of a sudden I realize, oh my gosh, my expectations were totally wrong. I've got it completely wrong. I've got to change what I'm doing if I'm going to make it in the market, right? And so making this decision to pivot is something that I think a lot of founders will end up encountering, either in the early stages or the later stages of their startup journey. Um, what is your advice on how founders can be prepared to take on these very sudden changes? And sort of what recommendations would you make to navigate through that sort of process?
That is a great question. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is a big problem. I've seen a lot of like I've got a lot of calls of entrepreneurs getting this first realization of like something's not working or this first rejection from an investor. So I think like you can't talk to them about it unless they live it. So you can just tell you, which I do, like I do talk to them, like actually things are might not work the same way that you expect them. There will be a lot of changes. You might change a lot in your business model. You might get a lot of rejection. The rejection is the default and so on. It's something to say it and to hear it. Another thing to live it. So I guess it's more of first to realize and acknowledge that there's something not going well. So if I'm trying to do a market survey and I'm doing some customer interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and all of my customers are saying like what I'm trying to build is not really helpful, or the problem that I defined is not really a problem for them, and I just keep saying like, no, I think they are wrong. Like if these are the people that you're trying to take their money basically, or ask them for like to give you their money and pay for your service, and they are not in favor of what you're trying to build or your assumptions basically, there is something wrong here. You need to change, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first realizing that there is something not going well, and second accepting that it can happen. It will happen to me. So I remember that time I got one of the entrepreneurs I was working closely with, like advising him on different aspects of his business. One of it was his pitch deck, and he were like we got in a call preparing him before an investor call and so on. And then he had this investor call. It didn't go well. It's expected, like he would get rejected for many different reasons. it can be for personal reasons for the investor, it could be something in the business. But then when he called me, he was very frustrated. It's like, I will not talk to investors again. It's too hard.
Oh no.
And I think I'm not doing it right. There is something wrong. I was like, well, it's like you can't tell them at this point, like, don't take it personal. It is personal. It's like you have been rejected as a like as a human being. Like, it's a bad feeling, but it
Mm-hmm.
takes you time. And when after a couple of days, like, rest down and so on, when you realize that the rejection is for the idea or for the business, it's not for you, and your idea and business keeps changing, can modify. What doesn't work for this investor could work for another.
Mm-hmm.
There are some reasons that, like, there is obvious reasons why investors are not interested. Okay, let's look at them. But also, it's not always your side of the story. It's not always your business is the problem. It might be the investor is not interested in this area or in this ticket size or in this industry or this geographic location, or they don't have enough money, basically. Like, you could be rejected for 100 reasons. If it's related to you, let's look at it. Let's see what's wrong with our business. How can we work it out and so on. So it takes some time and it takes experimentation to reach to that point of, yes, I know now that things can change and will change, and I'm ready to change them. But it's a skill, as any
Mm-hmm.
skill. You build it by time. But it's one of the important skills I think we're trying to, like, equip our entrepreneurs with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good advice. So thank you for sharing that. I definitely I definitely see how like the passion of founders can become sort of double-edged swords for them, and that, rejection is something that you can expect, but when it happens, it can really hit hard. So definitely building some resilience, and being prepared, um, for change to come, because it will come. It will be great. So
Yeah.
thank you for that insight. So we will probably have a couple other of our program directors in our community listening to this conversation, those that are working on building their own sort of startup programs. So I did want to talk to you a bit about how you're managing the programs at Oxford Saïd, and sort of what approaches you take to building startup programs. So this is a question I've asked every program builder I've had on this series, but what are some non-negotiables that you hold to when developing your program? So in other words, like, what is most important for you to consider when you're making all of these different platforms?
That's an interesting question as well. So I think it's an entrepreneur first approach. Like, you focus on these entrepreneurs, understand them really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, like, the application process, for example, for Oxford Venture Builder, I know the application is quite long and
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of questions, and I ask them to make like a 2 minutes video and so on. I know it's long, it's annoying, as like, if I'm an applicant, I would be like, oh man, this is too long, this is hard. But at the same time, we're trying to let them think through their idea, especially we are on idea stage. So, like, you can just open in the application and just, maybe this is your first time to write about your idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we're asking them different questions to think about different aspects of this business. So actually, that application process itself is part of their experience. Is like, this application is the first time that I would um, arrange my ideas around this business. So, and every aspect of it, the choice of, like, what workshops are we providing, what kind of education or training are we providing, it should come from these applicants. Like, what are the common needs in these applications? So we do have, like, some certain topics. Basically, like, you need to tell them around, like, how would they develop their business model, how would they understand their market, how would they build their financial models and so on. But the customization of these items, the areas to be covered, has to come from their needs. that you understand when you met them in an interview or when you read their application. So I think that's another important aspect. Personalization and customized advice is really important, like or mentorship. So I believe like in Oxford Venture Builder, the most important aspect is this mentorship. So we have a mentor that's dedicated for this team for a few weeks. They meet weekly, they give them advice, or like they give them some direction. Let's set some goals together. What are the problems that you're having today? What are the questions that you're trying to find answers to? And these mentors are like ex-entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs in probably in the same field, or investors. We do also have like some of like what we call them specialized mentors. So mentors in certain verticals: legal, financial, marketing, pricing. So people who could give a certain type of direction in a certain area. I think this is really important because especially in sector agnostic programs like Oxford Venture, we have life science entrepreneurs sitting next to an e-commerce entrepreneur, next to a fintech entrepreneur. Like definitely not the same advice. Maybe they could sit together for a workshop, but not an advice, very particular advice. So that's something else. Setting milestones is really important. So checkpoints, basically, like a point where you can, okay, can we have a look at your financial model at this point? We have a pitching event. This is kind of like our biggest checkpoint. So everyone wants to be ready, like you're going to be on a stage. So you will get everything sorted. You're trying to work hard because like there is kind of a deadline. I will take my idea in front of an audience for the first time. So I will try to be as ready as possible. So that's again what I think is important for time-framed programs like small and short programs like OVB. It's like 7 weeks. So it's a sprint. You need to do a lot of things in very short time, but also it's intentionally short because it's an idea validation one. So it's 7 weeks will give you a direction of should I continue, should I pivot, or should I stop doing this? And to answer this question, I've seen people spend like a year or more thinking about the same idea, not doing things. So as much as you build this experience around an objective, which is basically, I want people to decide what are the steps that they need to take with this idea. So this was my objective. If I achieve this objective, this program is doing it right.
Yeah, that's really great. Especially like, feedback is so important for founders, but it's also important for the program as well to know how they're doing and if they're actually serving their entrepreneurs. So yeah, definitely factoring that into the whole development process is really important.
Yeah, to your point
Yeah.
of feedback, it's really important to gather as much feedback as you can. It's really hard to I think the most valuable feedback is very qualitative. Like it's not like how satisfied you were with this session. It's like a number from 1 to 10. What does this number mean? So
Right.
really, really important to sit down with people, have this personal time to understand like, oh, how did you apply this? What did you learn? How can we help you really? And understand their feedback, and then loop this into the development of the program for the next year or for the next round and so on.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So another question I had about sort of Oxford SBS in general is kind of about all of the different programs that you guys have going on. So we talked a little bit earlier, there's the Venture Builder, there's the Forum. There are a lot of other like speaking events that you guys run. And so why add so many different platforms to sort of enrich the startup ecosystem at Oxford? Why is that important to building that community?
I think it's a matter of like who are you serving and what exactly are their needs.
Mm.
and where are the gaps in that market. So in an ecosystem where of entrepreneurship, you basically need a lot of things to happen. From just, you need to always keep this momentum around entrepreneurship, so you keep a lot of people interested in doing this.
Mhm.
You need to keep this training and development element. So if I have if I can provide to all the researchers in Oxford training on how to commercialize your research and what is an entrepreneurial mindset, I would do so. So this is an area where some of our programs cover. So just the awareness and understanding and building the mindset, but also like in a startup life, from idea all the way to investment and like the first check, and even after that there is a lot of needs and interventions that are needed. So there are a lot of skills on the personal level for the founders, but also there is a lot of help that you can offer for this startup as like as an organization. How would they grow? How would they like get investment? So there is a lot of things happening, and that's how new programs emerge. So it's basically, we look at these pathways of education and training and venture building and so on, and we start to figure out, okay, where are the gaps? How can we build something to like a program or something to close this gap? There is
Mhm.
always, beside this, is the ecosystem nurturing activities, which is basically networking, like speaking events or like keynote uh, and opportunities where people can speak about what they are building and share about what they are trying to do. Because also, like, entrepreneurship is quite a lonely journey at the start. Like
Mhm.
you're working alone, you're trying to build something, you need some assurance, you need to join and talk with people who are probably going through the same thing, getting the same rejections, getting excited, joining this pitching competition. So there is some momentum happening. So I guess
Mhm.
it's more of an ecosystem that goes together and grows together.
Yeah, I love that togetherness, especially for these entrepreneurs that are just already just finding their start. But yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the approach. I love how much you guys are able to offer your entrepreneurs. So really excited to see, what will be coming out of Oxford, SBS and OVB. So we are nearing the end of our time together, Ahmed. I've really enjoyed this conversation, getting to talk with you. I do have a couple last questions to sort of wrap up our discussion, touching on a couple things that we've talked about. Um, so to start us off, I'm kind of taking us back to sort of your beginnings and your starts in Egypt when you were first introduced to entrepreneurship, um, and sort of, now even though you're in the UK, I still feel like you're pretty engaged with the space in Africa and the startup world there. So I just want to get your opinion on this. But Africa and the Middle East are often regions that are overlooked by the startup world. But obviously, there are still conversations and innovation going on there, with brilliant minds and brilliant people that just haven't been discovered by the mainstream yet. So, should we be paying more attention to these regions? And if so, what should we keep our eye on?
Definitely, that's a great question. That's a very interesting area, because I think for a lot of people, when we talk about like entrepreneurship, about innovation, they only think about certain areas or regions in the world. However, now, like, I think the space is like, there is more space for innovation in emerging markets. There's more space for innovation on those very high growth markets. I wouldn't look at the Middle East or Africa as just one market. It's a lot of markets inside there, and they are different from each other and so on. And like each market has its pros and cons. Definitely, there is a lot of problems, but also these comes with opportunities. So I think, like, there is a lot of space and there's a lot of opportunities for startups in the region, but it has to be navigated differently. It's not the same way. It's a new market, it's a different market. So it has its own rules. It goes by its own book. It doesn't have to match exactly the way how startups in the Silicon Valley emerged or how startups in Europe emerged and so on. It has its own significance.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the more localized the work that this startup is doing, the more success it will get. So when you look, for example, in the Middle East, those startups that are kind of like the hot startups are the ones that are really growing. They probably took something that's happening somewhere else, but localized this offering very much, made it very Egyptian, made it very Saudi, made it very Emirati. So like it fits with this market, not just bringing something and just try to force it on this market. There's definitely higher momentum now, and especially in the Middle East, with the movement from Saudi and Emirates are trying to like push more money towards innovation, towards the startup. And you have also like countries like Egypt, which brings in a lot of talents every day. Like we do have a huge numbers of entrepreneurs starting new businesses, building something that's new. You have a big number of talents and skills. So that makes things much easier and cheaper at the same time. So it's an opportunity of how these markets can work together and create like a bigger and wider ecosystem that can compete with Europe, that can compete with China and the US.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. And definitely it's not news that there's a lot happening and moving in those areas now. So it'll be interesting to see, how they'll sort of rise up and maybe even become major innovation hubs for startups. But yeah, and then my last question for you sort of takes us back to where you are today, and even looking out into the future. So from your experience working as program manager at Oxford Saïd, um, and managing sort of OVB, what sort of impact are you guys making on the startup world today? And then how do you want to see that impact evolve over the next 5, 10 years out from now?
That's a great question.
That's why we're ending with
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Like it's one of the things that we talk a lot about is that, like, how would you measure impact of what you're doing, especially like when you're working on very early stage programs. It's really hard to measure it the same way that you would measure like a later stage accelerator, because you're investing more in the talent more than the startup. So a lot, like if I'm in idea stage program like Oxford Venture Builder, as I mentioned to you before, like it's a positive outcome for me if this entrepreneur decided not to continue. So if I'm talking about like how many companies are registered, how much investment have we raised, and how many jobs have we created, I might not hit a lot of numbers when it comes to this. But actually, these individuals can start another business or join a startup or join a business and then work for a few years, 5, 10 years, and then start another business again using the skills that they have learned, so it's really hard to keep tabs on that. It's a quite a common problem when it comes to measuring impact in any startup program. But the way that we're trying to measure it, at least, is to understand how much have we developed these skills in these entrepreneurs, and we're trying to capture this through like, I don't know, like feedback forms, talking again with them, trying to see an output, basically. Like, I learned to develop my business model, so here is a business model Canva have done. So I learned this to use this tool and why it's there, and so on this aspect. What is the output that we're looking for? We're definitely looking for increasing the number of entrepreneurs coming out of Oxford, increasing the quality of the startups coming out of Oxford, probably accelerating the steps that they take. So if organically I would take a year to reach to a point where I launch my product. No, through our programs, you would do this in 6 months. So again, like I believe that. So Oxford, as I mentioned, has the highest number of spin-outs in Europe. Big part of this is because we have the best talents coming to this university. But how can we double this number if we have the best talents? How can I double, like if it's, I'm not sure of the number, but if 10% of our researchers are spinning out, how can we make this 20%? So these are the real impact. Like how can we increase the numbers, but also the quality, and equip people with the skills that they need so that they can start businesses later. All of this will create more investment opportunities, will create more jobs, will create a lot of other things I may not be able to capture directly with an entrepreneur I'm working today in 10 years. I'm not keeping tabs on them. It's really hard. It needs a lot of resources to do it. But you're aiming for that. You're aiming for them to create jobs, to do something good for this world. And that's like the highest impact. But what we can measure is what we can work on today.
That's amazing. Yeah. And with that mindset, I really hope that you see those numbers increase. I've had the pleasure of interviewing a couple of founders of Oxford-backed startups. And yeah, I think what you guys are doing are great. The resources that you're providing have even come up in other conversations that I've had. So yeah, really, really looking forward to the future, and for you guys as well.
Thank you so much, Alexis.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's a good place to sort of wrap up our conversation. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us again, and for giving us your time.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Of course. With that, we'll be signing off, and we'll see you for our next feature.